Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are nearing the end of the 15th World Forestry Congress. We will soon begin our outcomes declaration, so we would kindly like to ask all of our guests to please take your seats. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the 15th World Forestry Congress Outcomes Declaration and presentation. We kindly would like to ask you to please take your seats. Thank you very much. We will proceed in just a few minutes. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for attending the 15th World Forestry Congress Outcomes presentation. We will now begin the Outcomes presentation session. We kindly would like to ask you to please take your seats. We do see our guests entering the hall. Please take your seats. We will begin the Outcomes session. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the outcomes session of the 15th World Forestry Congress. We kindly would like to ask you to please take your seats. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think you already my name. I told my name so many times, so welcome again. Good afternoon, my name is Eun-sik Park. I'm a Director General of International Affairs Bureau of the Korea Forest Service. And I am also working for the World Forest Congress Secretariat as Secretary General. It is my great honor to moderate the closing ceremony of the 15th World Forestry Congress. I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to all the honorable ministers, vice ministers, and head of international organizations and Congress participants that had attended this closing ceremony. Another special thanks is due to our partner in facilitating the Congress, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organizations, and to all members of the Korea Forest Service. I think this is my last chance to take the floor, so I'd like to say some thank you to my colleagues. My team within the World Forest Congress Secretariat and the Korea Forest Service International Affairs Bureau, we have persevered 2 years of the preparations in the COVID-19 pandemic, overcoming challenge after challenge that was put in our path. We have truly come out as winners in showing the future generation that we can find the breakthrough in any situation when we are united. Before I start, I'd like to share some of my feeling as the Secretary General of this World Forest Congress. Despite the challenging circumstance of the COVID-19 pandemic, the support and contribution demonstrated by all participating countries and groups was truly overwhelming. These concerted efforts have enabled us to produce meaningful outcomes throughout the past 6 days. Now, the Congress outcome will be announced. May I invite Associate Secretary General of the 15th World Forest Congress Secretariat, Mr. Peter Chokar, to announce the outcomes. Please, my dear colleagues, Peter.
Your Royal Highness, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, friends, and last but not least, my good friend over the last 2 years, Dr. Eun-sik Park. Thank you very much for all the preparations, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present the outcomes of the 15th World Forestry Congress to this esteemed gathering here. I would like to inform you, as it has been partly announced in the morning during plenary 4, that the outcome of the Congress is expected to be composed of several components. One is what we discussed in plenary 4, the detailed action proposals following the logic of the 6 sub-themes of the Congress. And this is what we observed and discussed in a very lively session in the morning, and these in an advanced unedited form, taking into consideration, of course, also the comments that were made in the morning, will be posted on the FAO website, and we continue working on them to give a final format to it and make sure that the language is perfect indeed. The other part of the outcome is a very important document. One is the key outcomes of this Congress, the ministerial call for scaling up sustainable wood-based pathways, which was endorsed by ministers of Austria, Cameroon, Gabon, Japan, Peru, and the Republic of Korea. And the next component of the outcome package is the youth call for action, which will be presented later in this session by our good friend who coordinated this process throughout the last several months, Mr. Amos Amanubo. And lastly, the piece that tries to provide an umbrella for all these outcomes is the Seoul Forest Declaration, which I have the pleasure to present it to you. And before I'm doing that, I would like to make a personal comment. My observation of this World Forestry Congress is that it was able to generate a very powerful, strong message that is in addition that we used to talk about in relation to forest. We are talking about sustainability, we are talking about longevity, we are talking about the global ecosystem very often, but hardly ever with such a strong emphasis we recognize an additional natural resource that is often unrecognized, and this is time. Often we believe that time is infinite. It is true, time is infinite, but not for us. We don't have an awful lot of time to take the right things, to do the right things, to take the right actions. And this time is more and more finite, day after day. And I was very happy to see this message or hear this message coming from the several discussions that we need to take action now. Indeed, it is now, because yes, there is tomorrow and maybe day after tomorrow, but we don't know how many. And what we can do now, we must do today, because that's what is done is done. What is not, it may happen or may not happen. And then this is what everybody suggested here, that we have a lot of wisdom, we have enough knowledge, so let's go and apply it. Let's go and work, and let's end the talk and start walking the walk. And this is something that I believe is one very important message of this Congress that can be carried forward into the future. And with this introduction, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to read out to you the Seoul Declaration. We, the participants from over 140 countries, gathered in person or online at the 15th World Forestry Congress in Seoul, the Republic of Korea, between 2 to 6 May 2022, assert that forests, forestry, and forest stakeholders offer major nature-based solutions to climate change, biodiversity loss, land degradation, hunger, and poverty. But we need to act now. There is no time to lose. We convey the following urgent messages to encourage action for a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests as a contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, and the green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Forests transcend political, social, and environmental boundaries and are vital for biodiversity and the carbon, water, and energy cycles at a planetary scale. The responsibility over forests should be shared and integrated across institutions, sectors, and stakeholders in order to achieve a sustainable future. Vast areas of degraded land require restoration. Investment in forest and landscape restoration globally must be at least tripled by 2030 to implement global commitments and meet internationally agreed goals and targets. There is no healthy economy on an unhealthy planet. Production and consumption need to be sustainable, and policies should foster innovative green financing mechanisms to upscale investment in forest conservation, restoration, and sustainable use. Wood is one of humanity's most ancient raw materials, but can take us into the future as well. It is renewable, recyclable, and incredibly versatile. The full potential of legal, sustainably produced wood must be used to transform the building sector, provide renewable energy and innovative new materials, and move towards a circular bioeconomy and climate neutrality. Forest degradation and destruction have serious negative impacts on human health and well-being. Healthy, productive forests must be maintained to reduce the risk of and improve responsiveness to future pandemics and provide other essential benefits for human, physical, and mental health. Innovative technologies and mechanisms are emerging for the provision of and equitable access to accurate information and knowledge on forests. These must be applied widely to enable evidence-based forest and landscape decision-making and effective forest communication. Forest-based solutions must be inclusive of the perspective of family farmers, smallholders, forest communities, indigenous peoples, women and youth, and respectful of their rights, and they must empower them to participate equitably in decision and making and sustainable forest value chains. Greater investment and capacity building in forest communication and education and more research are needed to strengthen the understanding and awareness of the benefits of sustainably managed forests and trees. Close cooperation among nations is required to address challenges that transcend political boundaries. This was strengthened at the Congress by new partnerships, such as the Assuring the Future of Forests with Integrated Risk Management, the so-called AFFIRM mechanism, the Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystems, SAFE initiative, and the Platform for REDD+ capacity building. The outcomes of this Congress, including this declaration, as well as the Youth Call for Action and the Ministerial Call on Sustainable Wood, should be transmitted to the next conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the upcoming conference of the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, and to all other important forest-related fora. The Congress calls on governments, the private sector, research organizations, educators, communities and youth organizations to take urgent action outlined above in partnership as a means for achieving better future for all. The Congress participants gratefully acknowledge the hospitality of the government and the people of the Republic of Korea and the support of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Associate Secretary General Mr. Peter Chokar, for announcing the Congress outcome. In the past 6 days, we have many opportunities share the very ambitious vision, insightful message, and good experience from many participants, especially from the Her Royal Highness Basma bint Ali and Madam Maria Helena Semedo and the honorable ministers and vice ministers and stakeholders from the many different groups. So I'd like to invite representatives to listen to their voices about the outcomes. The representatives from the stakeholders of the forestry sector will give their remarks. Please stay within the 5 minutes time frame. May I first invite the Deputy Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment of South Africa, Maggie Mahomoto Sotu, to give her remarks. Please.
Thank you very much, Program Directors. And good afternoon to Your Royal Highness, Princess Basma Bint Ali, the Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers present here today, FAO Deputy Director General Maria Helena Semero. Good afternoon to you and thanks for the warm welcome on my arrival. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm given 5 minutes and I won't disappoint you. I will stick to my 5 minutes. It is an honor for me to address you during the closing session of the 15th World Forestry Congress. It has been 7 years since Durban, that is my country in South Africa, and the vision for forest articulated at the 14th World Forestry Congress. We called then for new partnerships among the forest, agriculture, finance, energy, water, and other sectors. The 14th World Forestry Congress concluded with recommendations and Durban declarations. Recommendations focused on the major global challenges such as food insecurity, climate change, water scarcity, poverty, biodiversity loss, and limited resources in the context of growing world population require integrated and cross-sectoral approach. The Durban Declaration is summarized through the call for action and the Vision 2050 for forest. The call for action and Vision for forest focused on issues related to better integration of forest and other land users facing global challenges, a growing and common understanding of the need for more holistic and cross-sectoral approaches, and bold action to move from census to implementation following the powerful vision formulated by youth at the Congress. We are encouraged that the 15th World Forestry Congress was building on the recommendation and the outcomes of the Durban Declaration. I am referring to the engagement and discussions on topics such as forest finance, investment forum sessions that deal with inclusion and transformation, where we all acknowledge and appreciate indigenous knowledge system. In addition, Program Director, it was pleasing to see youth and students in particular participating in the Congress, as they are the future of tomorrow. Program Director, South Africa, having hosted the 14th World Forest Congress in Durban 2015, we are delighted that the organizers of the 15th World Forest have decided on a theme, sub-themes that will ensure continuity in terms of assessing what has been achieved since the last Congress and what needs to be put in place to ensure there is progress going forward. I listened attentively when you were reading your declaration for this specific Congress. I believe that the next Congress will focus and have a look whether we did indeed implement whatever we have decided upon today. I'm honored to announce that in line with the main goals of the Congress, as South Africans, we have a number of initiatives, but I would like to just highlight a few. The implementation of the 10 million trees program over a period of 5 years. The program is aimed at mitigating climate change and creating sustainable settlement. Development and implementation of the agroforestry strategy to address issues of competing land use between forestry and agriculture, food security, and resilience during disasters such as drought. Participation in reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation in developing countries. Program Director, let us be inspired by this year's winner of the Wangari Maathai Forest Champion Award, Cecil Njobet, and the many other champions of forest around the world. I need to indicate before I conclude that I had a very fruitful meeting this morning with the Minister of Korea for Forestry Service, and there are some areas of cooperation that we have decided upon as a country with South Korea. Therefore, I'm looking forward to working together with South Korea on those areas that we have identified. The Congress this week has shown we have come a long way since Durban, while we needed to learn to cope with new challenges such as COVID-19 pandemic. We have noted a groundswell interest worldwide in forest and their vital cross-sectoral cross. We have explored the 3 forest pathways towards sustainable development. As I conclude, I would like to thank you for a warm welcome when since from the day one up to this day, as South Africa, we're very much pleased to see that most of the issues that we discussed in 2015, they have been implemented by some other countries. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellencies, for your wonderful remarks and for representing South Africa, the host country of the 14th World Forestry Congress. Next, Minister of the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs of the United Kingdom, the Lord Jack Goldsmith, will give his remarks as a representative of the government sector. Please welcome with a big round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General, Your Royal Highness, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be asked to say a few words. I'm Zach Goldsmith, I'm a minister with the UK government, and I'd like to thank the UN, FAO and President Moon, and to everyone who has given me such a warm welcome to this beautiful country. From the Eurasian curlew stopping off at the Suncheon Bay wetlands on a 5,000-kilometer annual migration from Australia to the Arctic, to the cherries, hazel, deer, magnificent black bears deep in the forests and mountains of Jirisan National Park. Your country is simply full of national and natural treasures. Now, it's my first time here, but I have long admired from a distance this country's truly remarkable achievements. Its lands and forests, as you know well, had been flattened by conflict in the middle of the last century, but you would never know that today. Indeed, 2/3 of the Republic of Korea is now covered in canopy, and this is one of the very few nations on Earth that ended the last century with more forest cover than it began. And that wasn't an accident, it didn't just happen. It required huge commitment at every single level of society. And as a result of that incredible effort, I know that protecting and restoring these natural treasures is a source of deep national pride, and rightly so. I've seen that Koreans see their forests as a place of reflection, of worship, learning, fun, and of course, as places of work as well. And that collective determination and commitment, I think, should inspire and encourage all of us. Indeed, with hundreds of thousands of species currently facing extinction, with forests being lost at a rate of around 30 football pitches every single minute, and with the climate being dangerously destabilized partly as a result of that, it is the sort of commitment and ambition that we need all over the world. Now, I'm not going to burden you with the facts and arguments that you undoubtedly already know, other than to say that if we continue to degrade the world's great forests and ecosystems, then we will derail complex natural systems beyond repair, systems on which each and every one of us relies completely. Millions of people will endure terrible suffering, and our shared global goals will simply slip beyond our reach. And reversing these trends is, I believe, the single greatest challenge that we have ever faced as a species. But the good news is that we know that we can turn things around, because demand for change is evident all around us, because we have all the knowledge and all the tools we need in order to turn things around, and because around the world there are pockets of genuine ambition, real leadership. And I've seen that myself. I've been lucky enough in my job to be able to visit some of those ambitious spots, from Costa Rica to Gabon, from the Republic of Congo to here in Korea. And we know that given even half a chance, nature can recover. Indeed, protecting and restoring the natural world provides so many other solutions to so many other challenges we face at the same time. Hunger, poverty, pollution, even pandemics, and the causes and the impacts of climate change. And that's why, as President of COP26, which we hosted, as you know, at the end of last year, the UK brought nature from the very margins of the global climate debate, and we put it into the heart of our response and the global response. In Glasgow, 143 countries representing around 90% of the world's forests came together to commit to halting and reversing forest loss by the end of this decade. And that Glasgow Declaration was supplemented, reinforced by unprecedented public, private, and philanthropic investment amounting to around $20 billion, with at least $1.7 billion being allocated to help indigenous people and local communities secure forests and land tenure rights. It's reinforced at the same time by commitments from some of the world's biggest buyers of forest risk commodities, by financial institutions, the big multilateral development banks as well, all committing to align their buying, their portfolios, their policies, not just with the Paris Agreement, but with nature as well. And having doubled our own international climate finance to 11.6 billion in the UK, we are committed to investing around a third of that in nature-based solutions, with about half of that again in forests. So in the months before we hand the baton to our friends in Egypt, who will be hosting COP27, our priority as a country is to ensure that those commitments that were secured are honored in full and that we build upon them. And this World Forest Congress, with the announcement that you've just heard, absolutely is central towards building upon those commitments. But COP27 is just one landing post this year. We have numerous opportunities to build on the momentum at the CBD COP15 in Kunming, a critically important moment. Before that, the UNCCD COP15 on desertification. And the golden thread that runs through all three Rio conventions is, of course, nature and our relationship with it. And if we want to secure an ambitious post-2020 global biodiversity framework, and if we want to get that agreement over the line in Kunming, then we need to demonstrate a seriousness about closing the very significant funding gap over the course of the next decade. Public money, private money, philanthropic money, all need to be scaled up considerably. But we also need, even more importantly, to change the way that public money is spent across the board, so that instead of undermining the public good, it supports it, shifting hundreds of billions of dollars of subsidies away from destruction and towards sustainability and renewal. If you consider that the top 50 food-producing countries spend nearly $700 billion every year subsidizing often highly destructive land use, that's 4 times the world's aid budget combined. And you need only imagine the impact if that money was shifted away from destruction towards renewal. Now, these are things that only government can do, and too often governments are not doing them. And so we need governments everywhere to commit to using all the levers that are uniquely at their disposal, working together across ministries to adjust the rules, to take nature into account, to make pollution and degradation of the natural world an unbearable financial liability, and to make the market recognize the true value of nature. It's a huge challenge, even as we confront the impacts of pandemic, conflicts, and so on. But we know we can do it. The only thing we really need is political will and political leadership. And so before I close, I just want to add my personal thanks to Minister Chai Byong-am and the Korea Forestry Service for their extraordinary leadership of the World Forestry Congress as we seek to deliver on the promises of the Seoul Forest Declaration. I thank you so much for all of the leadership you've shown over the last few days.
Thank you, Lord Goldsmith, for your remarks. Your words that governments must commit to use their unique political will and leadership was profound. Now I'd like to move on to the private sector. I'd like to invite IUPRO, the International Union of Forest Research Organization President. Dr. John Parota will represent the research sector and give his remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished fellow panelists, delegates, colleagues, and friends. On behalf of UFRO and the forest science community, thank you for this opportunity to reflect on the outcomes of this historic 15th World Forestry Congress. This Congress provided an open forum for the exchange of knowledge, perspectives, and visions about the diverse communities, among the diverse communities that comprise the forest sector, including scientists, educators, forest managers, civil society, youth, policymakers, communicators, and the public. This dialogue has enriched us all and expanded our understanding of how, by working together, we can and will raise the profile of forests and their contributions to many of the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the COVID-19 recovery measures at this critical time. The Congress Declaration presents a clear set of messages regarding the critical roles that forests and trees outside of forests play in enhancing food security and nutrition, providing abundant and clean water, making our cities more livable, halting and reversing land degradation, promoting sustainable production and consumption, and of course, helping to address both the climate and biodiversity crises that threaten our survival. Forest science has a crucial role to play in all this. The vast pool of knowledge, experience, insights, and innovation that is currently available from Western science, indigenous science, and the traditional knowledge of local communities is fundamental to effective conservation, sustainable management, and restoration of the world's forests in the face of the many challenges we face. This priceless knowledge and the social and cultural capital that underpins it must be fully engaged. The forest research community stands ready to work shoulder to shoulder with our colleagues in all natural resource sectors, including agriculture, as well as with policymakers, the private sector, civil society, organizations, communities, and youth to tackle the urgent challenges before us. Our efforts will also require the support and engagement of the public, whose personal and collective decisions have significant direct and indirect impacts on forests and their governance. Therefore, effective communication about the importance of forests is critical. So too is forest education at all levels, from school children to university students to forestry professionals. These priorities are clearly articulated in the Seoul Forest Declaration. In closing, I would like to thank both the Korea Forest Service and FAO for making this amazing Congress possible. I believe that I speak for many of us who have participated both physically and virtually in this very important event, that it has been an inspiring and energizing experience, one that reminds us that by learning and working together, we will succeed to build a greener, healthier, and more resilient future with forests. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. John, for your representing the research sector and speaking upon the role of forests to respond to the climate crisis and the significance of forest science. During the last 6 days, in many sessions, I heard many speakers emphasize the role of indigenous groups. So now I'd like to invite the leader of the coordinator of the indigenous organizations of the Amazon Basin, Juan Carlos Gintihau, to represent the indigenous community. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
BK Shuarat Campunia Vinyahe, Atumi Mashi Amidnat He.
I have just said hello to my own in my own language. I am Juan Carlos Jintiac, and for me to say hello this afternoon, it is a great honor and privilege. In particular, I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to the Republic of Korea, FAO, and the Korea Forest Service, as well as the ministers, Her Excellency, and Her Royal Highness, as well as brothers and sisters. On behalf of my organization, KOICA, which is an alliance of indigenous groups in the Amazon region, it is indeed a great pleasure for me to greet our brothers and sisters across the globe. The message that I would like to deliver to you comes from the bottom of my heart. We would like to mention that the fact that indigenous groups are included in the Seoul Forestry Declaration is something that we would like to see in paper, because there are many members of the indigenous groups that do not have access to the internet or the computer. By providing paper copies, we would be able to deliver this message to our brothers and sisters in our communities. Of course, indigenous groups continue to ask for land rights. However, our requests have not received sufficient responses thus far. And whenever we talk about forestry around the world, we tend to emphasize resources, but we are at a crisis. Science has already proved this. We need to make sure that we remember that we are at a crisis, and at the same time, we also need to remember that within indigenous groups, 80% of biodiversity is currently being preserved. This does not mean that we are simply safeguarding the biodiversity, but we are devoting our lives into protecting biodiversity. But this can be done even better if we work together. Quite sadly, the brothers and sisters of indigenous communities around the world are faced with racial discrimination, and many have died because of such discrimination. And many have also lost their lives due to preventable natural disasters. Concerning COVID-19, I have no choice but to talk about the same story. Our elderly, our women, our children are exposed to such dangers. Along these lines, we do respect Western science. We look up to Western science. But at the same time, the science of the indigenous communities and the knowledge of the indigenous people have been earned from the forest. We communicated with the forest, and we receive our food and medicine from the forest. And so we need to make sure that such knowledge is also respected. To the government of the Republic of Korea and to the FAO, I would like to emphasize that at this World Forestry Congress, we continue to need to raise our voices, and thank you very much for these opportunities to share our voice with you. Finding nature-based solutions are very important. The indigenous people, we are nature itself. Our rights and the rights of the earth are one and the same. Our local communities are directly connected with nature. The Seoul Forestry Declaration, we surely welcome the declaration. We are the direct victims of climate change. And it is a great opportunity for us to participate in this Congress with a sense of urgency. Thank you for adopting the declaration.
Thank you, Mr. Juan Carlos Jintao, for supporting this Seoul Declaration, our outcomes of the 15th World Forest Congress, and for conveying views on indigenous stewardship in forest sector. I think we have so many small holders in forest sectors. I believe their voices should not be ignored. So I'd like to invite the president of the Korea Forestry Successor Association, Mr. Choi Moo-yeol, to give his remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Choi Moo-yeol. I am chairperson of the Association of Descendants of Smallholders in the Forestry sector in Korea. It is my great pleasure to be participating in the World Forestry Congress as a representative of smallholder groups. Korea has been successful in restoring its forests. And I like to mention that many smallholders have been critical in achieving this because they have been involved in voluntary activities to plant trees and managing the forests. And as of 2018, we estimate that there's more than 221 trillion won of value of forests. This means that there is a public value of more than 4 million won per person. Forests produce wood products. In addition, they help provide clean water and they offer restoration, entertainment, and other recreational purposes for citizens. In addition, forests have been recognized for their role in storing and preserving carbon. According to an FAO report in 2015, carbon sequestration by forest has been calculated and announced. I believe that government representatives and forest sector leaders have come together to create this declaration and the Congress outcomes. And I believe that these outcomes and declaration include very important recommendations for people in the forest sector. I would really have to focus on sustainable use of wood products. Wood has been the most ancient resources for humanity, and wood and timber products have been very useful in human civilization. In particular, wood is renewable resource. Therefore, utilizing wood is critical in responding to climate change and achieving sustainable development. As we all agree, wood has natural value, but it also has ecological and other value. And I hope that there will be exponential growth of the use of wood products around the world. But at the same time, we need to remember that we need to continue to put into practice various efforts on the ground. If we do not put into practice all these guidelines and recommendations, there will be no achievements. In Korea, 67% of its territory is covered by trees and forests. And in Korea, we have this forest sector that needs to be provided with more support. Representing smallholder groups and foresters, we need to be given more support and opportunities so that we can strengthen our capacity. And I hope that this Congress will provide us with new opportunities. First of all, there should be more support system and schemes for foresters. About 25% of forests are public forests. And in responding to carbon neutrality and to sustainably manage forests, I believe that the government has to implement new schemes to support foresters in the public woods. And by utilizing public woods, we will be able to help limit the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius. We believe that there should be more financial and physical support for the forestry sector, but they have not been included for tax benefits. I argue that various taxes, including acquisition taxes and transfer taxes, need to be exempted when foresters manage their forests for more than 8 years. Third, I believe we need to include a percentage of domestically sourced wood products rather than importing these products from overseas. We need to continue to expand the use of wood products, and to do so, we need to promote circular economy. Currently, the self-suppliance of wood products in Korea is 16%, but we need to increase this to 25%. We need to reduce the use of steel and other non-renewable resources, but replace them with wood products. Fourth, we need to increase technology and sophistication in the forest sector. The population in the forest sector is aging, and there are high altitude mountains where it is very difficult for laborers to work. So we need to implement state-of-the-art technology and solutions so that these forest sector can increase value added. And I would also like to mention that we need to continue to promote young foresters, especially women and youth should be included in the forest sector. In order to promote female youth personnel in the forest sector, we need to provide tailored training and education program. For those high school graduates and college graduates, if they want to work in the forest sector, they need to be given more support and additional policy support. And there should be a nationwide promotion system so that female foresters can continue to develop their careers, and they should be encouraged to move to the faraway places to work in the mountains. Korea has become a successful country in terms of reforestation, but we have a low level of forest product utilization. Now we need to switch our attention so we no longer need to just focus on preserving our forests, but we should utilize them in a sustainable manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Choi Muyal, for your remarks and advocating for maximizing the public benefits of forest on behalf of the forestry sector. Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Georg Schrumbeck, the President of the German Forestry Council, on behalf of the private sector. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Dear international forestry community, ladies and gentlemen, I am Georg Schirmbeck, the President of the German Forestry Council, and thus the spokesman for 2 million forest owners, foresters, forestry workers, forestry universities, and many forestry training institutions. There are 16 million forest owners in Europe. Vast majority of them small forest owners. I am one of these small forest owners. Germany has a great tradition in forestry and timber management. In Germany and the world, we are releasing too much CO2. That is bad for our climate. Our forests bind CO2. We therefore need to plant young, diverse, climate-stable forests. When the trees are ready to be harvested, the wood must be processed into durable wood products. This takes CO2 out the atmosphere and at the same time avoids products that were harmful to the environment. Our forest scientists have proved that actively managed forests are better for biodiversity than dark rotting forests. We must not set aside forest land in developed countries while at the same time overexploring forests in developing countries. The hunger of the world's people is the enemy of our forests. We must conduct forestry on a forest science basis and not on ideology. 309 years ago, there was a man in Germany named Karlowitz. This man was concerned about the forest in his homeland, as the forests were in poor condition due to overexploitation. He had an idea: to use only as much wood as grew back. Karlowitz was the inventor of sustainability 300 years ago because we wanted to build green, healthy, and resilient forests. This makes forestry to cradle of sensibility. Now we are standing here 309 years later, and the motto of this Congress is building green, healthy, resilient forests together. In the spirit of the forestry inventor of sustainability, the Congress and the talks of the last days have set a strong sign here. This sign, which my team and the members of the German Parliament are holding up, is made of wood from an oak tree and grew in Berlin. This oak grew in the spirit of sustainability almost 300 years ago. It has expired world wars, a divided city, and peace. In its wood we have graved for the forest in Korea. We have traveled here from Germany to talk together about forest science and to build green, healthy, resilient forests internationally. After this session, we gave this gift to the minister, the Berlin oak, we give to you. I thank the Korean government and all the organizations involved for holding this World Forestry Congress. Maybe we will see each other on a similar event soon in Europe, in Germany, in Berlin. I wish you peace and health and a little bit love. Thank you very much.
Thank you for representing the private sector and giving your remarks at this World Forestry Congress. I believe the Karlowitz's early idea of sustainable harvesting has led to today's concept of sustainability. Last but not least, I'd like to invite Amos Amanubo. He will give his remarks at the youth representatives for stakeholders. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Dear esteemed dignitaries and participants of the 15th World Forestry Congress and stakeholders of the forest sector, you have heard many times the previous speakers mention about youth and youth and youth. To this end, I have the honor to present to you the call to action concerning the meaningful participation and inclusion of youth and young professionals in the forest sector. Following regional consultations across the world with over 700 youth and young professionals and youth-led organizations in the forest sector and land use-related sectors, the youth together have identified a number of key barriers that must be addressed to enhancing their potential and leveraging their contribution to building a sustainable future with forests. These challenges include, among others, limited career development programs and outdated academic programs for forest education, limited decent employment in the forest sector, which constrains the socio-economic integration of young people, of the young generations, limited access to financial opportunities, which also constrains the ability of youth to engage in forest-related entrepreneurship, research, and exchange. Last, but also very importantly, we identified limited gender mainstreaming and inclusion of youth voices in policy and decision-making processes. We, the youth, are committed to contributing to building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests, capitalizing on our networks, exploring partnerships with the private and public sectors across local and global scales, academia, and the civic society, to overcome the barriers to our meaningful engagement and contribution to the forest sector, including achieving the global forest goals, the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, and progressive and meaningful national and private sector forest-related sustainable objectives. To achieve our vision and mission, we need concerted efforts from the public sector, the private sector, the academia, and non-governmental organizations within and beyond the forest sector. We, the youth, therefore invite these actors and all of you that are here today to work with us to ensure inclusive and equitable access to high-quality forest education and trainings for youth everywhere. This includes improving programs that prepare youth in technical knowledge, but also socioeconomic and global political economy perspectives on the forest sector. We also invite you to expand the number of scholarships available, particularly in developing countries, and enhance international support for implementing effective and targeted capacity building programs. And we invite you to improve and standardize technical vocational education and training opportunities for youth that combine on-the-job training and off-job learning. We invite you to work with us to ensure decent work and career development for the youth everywhere, including engaging with youth to better understand how the forest sector can be more appealing career option for the youth and create more decent jobs and career development and advancement opportunities. We invite you to work with us to increase investments and access to finance in small forestry businesses, including youth entrepreneurship and projects, and supporting the development of value chains in youth-led forest-related enterprises. We invite you to strengthen and enhance multi-sectoral collaborations between governments and the private sector and the academic sector to provide high-quality mentorship and apprenticeship opportunities to ensure a smooth entry into the workforce for youth. We invite you to work with us to achieve gender equality and empower all young women in the forest sector. This includes fostering multi-sectoral collaborations between governments and private sectors and the academia as well to promote gender-inclusive practices in recruitment and selection processes. Promote women's leadership at all levels of decision-making in the forest sector. And we invite you to foster multi-sectoral collaborations to promote training of female teams to work in the field, as well as training on non-tolerated behaviors and gender biases in the workplace in the forest sector. And lastly, we invite you to work with us to ensure the political participation and representation of youth and young professionals through improving the diversification of boards and advisory committees and task forces by actively seeking and inviting qualified youth on board. Depending on the context, to avoid the tokenization of youth participation, we invite you to also make youth part of the quorum in your decision-making committees and boards. And lastly, very importantly, we invite you to include youth in planning, implementing, monitoring, and evaluating outcomes of programs and projects that may impact youth. We, the youth, acknowledge the collaborative nature of these recommendations, and we invite the governments, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the academia and the private sector to provide an enabling environment for us to unlock our potential in the forest sector. We also recognize the role that the 15th World Forestry Congress has played in empowering and responding to the needs of the youth and young professionals, enabling them to showcase their contributions to the sector and to network and engage in mentorship. And we encourage today onwards all stakeholders in the forest sector to carry with the example that has been set here in this 15th World Forestry Congress. Before I leave this stage, I would like to acknowledge also my colleague who worked relentlessly to make sure that this comes to this stage. Erica Di Girolami, who is not here with us, who also worked on this youth declaration. And also, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude on behalf of all the youth that participated in the regional consultations and all the youth and young professionals that have joined us here in this 15th World Forestry Congress. Extend our gratitude to the Korean Forest Service and the government of Korea for having created the environment, the enabling environment for youth to participate and send out this monumental statement that they are capable and they want to contribute to building a sustainable future with forests. With all these, I say thank you, and we look forward to working together with you in building our future with forests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Amos Amanubo, for your words and for reaffirming the importance of forest for the future generation on behalf of the youth. The outcomes of the 15th World Forestry Congress will now be announced. Forest-based solution must be inclusive of the perspectives of family farmers, smallholders, forest communities, indigenous peoples, women, and youth, and respectable of their rights, and they must empower them to participate equitably in decision-making and sustainable forest value chains. Participants of the 15th World Forestry Congress, if you stand behind what has been announced as the outcome of the Congress, please convey your thought in a way that may be known to all. Thank you. Thank you for your support. With the outstanding applause of the participants, I declare the adoption of the 15th World Forestry Congress outcomes. I'm very pleased that such meaningful outcomes have been adopted at the 15th World Forestry Congress. The Korea Forest Service and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations truly thank all participants from their respective countries for facilitating the adoption of the outcomes, and our gratitude goes out to everyone that has helped facilitate each event. I believe the outcomes will be spread widely and anticipate them to bridge key conference of parties such as UNCCD, CBD, UNFCCC, and others that will be held this year. The second half of the closing ceremony will commence immediately with the Jian Zhou as the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please give another big round of applause for the 15th World Forestry Congress outcomes. Thank you. Thank you very much. For those of you who are attending our closing ceremony, please be aware that we will be proceeding right away. Please note that simultaneous interpretation is being provided at this moment. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ju-Yeon Cho, and I greet you once again after our opening ceremony. And it is wonderful to see you here all at the closing ceremony of the 15th World Forestry Congress. The Congress that had kicked off a couple of days ago at the beginning of the week is now coming to an end. I'm certain that the Forestry Congress has offered a wonderful platform for people all around the world, also those who are here with us in person, to discuss ways for a better, a greener, and healthier future through forests. And I must say that the 15th World Forestry Congress is being held under unprecedented situations, also very memorable, to say the least. And it has been a whirlwind of a week, and with sessions, plenaries, and subsessions. So just to do a little recap of what has happened over the past few days, now let us look back at the week with memories that we've made over the week. Please direct your attention to the screen for the highlight video.
You must all be very tired.
Organization. Cheers.
Cheers!
자연재해, 핵폭발과 같은 전 대재앙을 대비해 힘을 쏟아옵니다.
Mucha satisfacción.
There is an English-Korean translation provided, and please tune in to channel 1 for Korean language.
This is a launch
아시아
system.
Dear panel, cheers.
Cheers for our health. I hope you truly enjoyed that small present that we have prepared for you as the highlight video of the past week. I believe that it was a spectacular video, especially having viewed that on the full screen here at this hall. And it was quite emotional to see so many people in person and their passion and dedication to this Congress. So thank you once again, and we truly hope that you had enjoyed the full week with us here in Seoul. Despite some of the difficult times that we had gone through because of the pandemic, I believe it was because of this dedication and the passion for the forestry industry that we could come together for the 15th World Forestry Congress. So with that, thank you once again, and a big round of applause to everyone. Thank you. And with that, before we move on, we have a special surprise today. We have a short proposal by the Turkish delegation for the hosting or the offer of the hosting of the 16th World Forestry Congress. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage two gentlemen from the Turkish delegation.
Değerli katılımcılar, benim ismim Mehmet Koç. Türkiye Orman Genel Müdürü Bekir Karacabey adına sizleri saygıyla selamlıyorum. Kendisi 4 gündür buradaydı ancak ayrılmak durumunda kaldığı için biz buraya sizlerin huzurunuza geldik.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, his name is Mehmet Koç. He represents Mr. Bekir Karacabey, the Director General of Forests of Turkey. Mr. Director General was here during the week, but yesterday he had to move to Turkey, so he represents our Director General.
Bu organizasyon için Kore Orman Teşkilatı'na ve FAO'ya teşekkür ediyor, tebriklerimizi sunuyoruz. Bundan sonra yapılacak olan 16. Dünya Ormancılık Kongresi'ne ev sahipliği yapmak istediğimizi buradan sizlere ifade etmek istiyor. Saygılarımı sunuyorum.
We really congratulate the Korean Forestry Service and FAO for this wonderful organization and thank all the participants. And we would like to announce that as Turkish government, represented by GDO Forestry, we would like to announce that we are ready to host the next World Forestry Congress in Turkey.
Teşekkür ediyoruz, saygılar sunuyoruz.
Using this opportunity, we would like to thank again and would like to see all of you and the other distinguished participants with online participation. We would like to see you in Turkey, possibly in Istanbul, and we wish to thank you again.
Thank you very much for that offer, and another big round of applause, please. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can proceed on to the official closing ceremony of the 15th World Forestry Congress. First and foremost, we have the closing remarks from Mr. Ibrahim Tiao, the Executive Secretary of the UNCCD, on video. So with that, please turn your attention to the screen for the video.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is a great pleasure to join you at this closing session of the World Forestry Congress. I'm sorry I cannot be with you today, as I am already in Abidjan, where our COP will be opening in just 3 days. First, I would like to thank the government of the Republic of Korea and the Korea Forest Service for the leadership and for successfully hosting this important meeting. I also want to thank and congratulate my colleagues from FAO and all the participants on the fruitful outcomes of the Congress, as you have indeed taken an important step to protect, sustainably manage, and restore forests under the theme of building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests. Forests are vital land ecosystems that underpin the existence of people, society, and the planet. They are home to more than 3/4 of the world's species, providing the basic essentials of air, food, and water. They also capture carbon and provide critical habitat for biodiversity. Forests are the last defense for a healthy and resilient future. If we fail forests, we fail ourselves, our future generations. In this context, all of us participating at the 15th World Forestry Congress are standing on the front line, defending our forests, our land, our lives, and our future. Our strong and unified voice will echo throughout the world, and our solidarity for protecting and restoring forests and land will make a real difference. Excellencies, dear friends, there is another critical forum coming up in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, from 9 to 20th of May that will amplify our voices and further reinforce countries' commitments to conserve and regenerate forests and degraded land. The 15th session of the Conference of the Parties, COP15 of the UNCCD, has adopted the theme Land, Life, Legacy, from scarcity to prosperity. It will bring together heads of states and governments, leaders, the private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders from around the world to accelerate progress towards reversing land and forest degradation. Land is the bedrock of a healthy, productive, and prosperous society. According to the just released Global Land Outlook from the UNCCD, about 70% of the land has already been altered by human activities. COP15 is therefore an urgent call to action to turn the tide from land exploitation to land stewardship, from land degradation to land restoration, and from disaster to resilience. All of you are welcome to join in this key moment in the fight against desertification, land degradation, and drought. It will put forward a unified agenda for land restoration, drought resilience, land rights, gender equality, and youth empowerment that offers proven, cost-effective solutions to the interconnected challenges of land degradation, climate change, and biodiversity loss. As we are in the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, this may be the last opportunity for us to manage, protect all types of lands in a sustainable and integrated manner to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Dear colleagues, our voices at the World Forestry Congress will resonate at the UNCCD COP15. We will continue to push for increased ambition to translate land restoration commitment into action on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Mr. Tiao, the Executive Secretary of the UNCCD, for your message of solidarity. And you also mentioned that if we fail forests, we will fail ourselves. I think that that deeply resonates with us all. Thank you once again, and we wish you the success for the COP15 of UNCCD as well. And now moving on, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Maria Helena Semedo, the Deputy Director General of FAO, will deliver her closing remarks. Please welcome her with a warm round of applause.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are following us in this closing of the 15th World Forest Congress. Your Royal Highness Princess Basma bint Ali, Honorable Minister Byung-am Choi, Excellencies, Ministers, Vice Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends. The 15th World Forestry Congress has truly put forests without boundaries into practices, bringing together government, indigenous people and local communities, research organizations and academia, civil society organizations and the private sector, including small business. Forest has connected us throughout this week. This Congress was very timely, given the multiple interconnected and often overlapping challenges we face: the climate crisis, the pandemic, and soaring food prices, which are hitting the poorest the hardest. Today, more than 800 million people still suffer from hunger. And it is clear that there will not be no healthy economy nor recovery on an unhealthy planet. Environmental deterioration continues, and 10 million hectares of forest are lost every year from other land uses, amplifying the impact of climate crisis, biodiversity loss, and risk of emergence of new diseases. But, as reconfirmed here in this Congress, forests and trees can play crucial roles in addressing this crisis and at the same time in moving towards sustainable economies. The solution lies in the three interrelated pathways to support economic and environmental recovery. One, halting deforestation and maintaining forests. Second, restoring degraded lands and expanding agroforestry. And third, sustainably using forests and building green value chains. They contribute to transforming agri-food systems to be more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard it very loud and clear this week that it is time for the world to invest in our forests, politically, financially, technically, and technologically. Finance for the three pathways must at least triple by 2030 to meet climate, biodiversity, and land degradation neutrality targets. This includes new investments through climate finance, green recovery programs, and especially a stronger role for the private sector. Restoring and sustainably managing forests and trees call for up-to-date and reliable data for effective and appropriate decision-making, as well as combination of traditional knowledge with modern science. The Congress saw important events such as the launch of the State of the World Forest 2022 and unveiled the results of our remote sensing survey, a complement to the FAO 2020 Global Forest Resource Assessment. The Congress has also been marked by new partnerships, such as the Assuring the Future of Forests with Integrated Risk Management Mechanism, AFFIRM, and the Sustainable and Abundance of Forest Ecosystem Initiative, SAFE, giving a renewed impetus for action. The Seoul Forest Declaration that we just endorsed emphasized that forestry, and forest stakeholders offer major nature-positive solutions to the climate crisis, biodiversity loss, land degradation, hunger, and poverty. Let us convey and promote the key messages from the declaration and keep the momentum from this 15th World Forestry Congress. Excellencies, participants, dear friends, I wish to convey my appreciation to the government of the Republic of Korea, the Korea Forest Service, in particular to Your Excellency, Minister Beng M. Choi, for your leadership and to so superbly hosting the 15th World Forestry Congress co-organized by FAO. You have graciously hosted this Congress, sharing with us your wonderful cultural heritage, from beautiful traditional song, music, inspiring dance, and even some dynamic K-pop and Taekwondo. I would like to thank Your Royal Highness Princess Basmat bint Ali, FAO's Regional Goodwill Ambassador, for her tireless commitment and to active participation in this Congress. We hope that we'll continue to lend your influential voice to support forests and to help carry forward the Congress message and legacy. Thank you. I would like to recognize the great support of the Secretariat who prepared this Congress under the leadership of the Secretary General, Eusin Park, and Associate Secretary General, Peter Ciocca, and their excellent teams. I thank also the chairperson of the advisory committees, Dr. John Parotta and Huang Chang, and committees members for the valuable input throughout the preparation. Thank you. I am particularly heartened to see many students and young professionals so actively and insightfully contributing to the dialogues and the outcomes of this Congress. You are the decision makers and sharpers of the future. I wish to thank all the participants, all of you, here in this room and connected around the world, for contributing to the very rich and forward-looking discussion to make forest and forestry a solution of the crisis we face. Our gratitude to all FAO colleagues, all the colleagues from the Korean Forest Services for their tireless efforts. Our gratitude to the ones working behind the scene, the interpreters who connected us throughout this week, the communicators, the facilitators. It was indeed a great teamwork through a dream team. Thank you all. Only by working together to conserve, restore, and sustainably use forests can we unlock the power of forests and trees to build a green and healthy future for all. I thank you for all the great contribution, the hard work, and wish you all safe travel home. Thank you, and see you in the next 6 years.
Thank you once again for the great closing remarks, Deputy Director General Semedo. Thank you once again for your remarks. Indeed, she mentioned that we have heard messages loud and clear this week that we must invest in forestry and that we must take action now. But this week we have shown great teamwork once again, so thank you for those closing remarks. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Her Royal Highness Princess Basma bint Ali from the Kingdom of Jordan to the stage for her remarks. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وخاتم النبيين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Your Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to thank the government of the Republic of Korea for their generous hospitality and the Food and Agricultural Organization for its meticulous planning and arrangements, but most especially for everyone who has worked behind the scenes, including the interpreters who kept up with our very spirited dialogues. So thank you for ensuring that the 15th World Forestry Congress is a success. Honestly, it's been quite an energetic few days, so much so that if you can kindly indulge me with this thought, I can only equate its similarity to a thriving beehive, where we, the participants, are the hard-working bees that have been foraging nectar and pollen from the far reaches of our home, 146 countries, and have come here in a buzz of activity to the Congress, which is the hive, to assimilate the precious knowledge and experiences into a sweet honey that will sustain and nourish us through the bitter winter. This winter I refer to as the next couple of years. Thus, the declaration of the 15th World Forestry Congress must be put into action and must be put now, so we can truly live to see a bright spring where the blossom of hope can begin to bloom within the next 8 years and ensure a good harvest. A harvest that is a green, healthy, and resilient future, with the forest sector development, by our definition, being the key to nature-based solutions to climate adaptation that have strong mitigation benefits. This task takes transparent collaboration by all stakeholders. And here, I would like to take a moment to highlight a point which Juan Carlos Gentiach, the Technical Advisor Climate Change and Biodiversity, mentioned in Session 5 of the Subtheme 6, that is, Indigenous peoples and local communities are not only stakeholders, but rather they are the right holders of these lands and forests. Their voices need to be heard on the global stage, as we have done so today. Along the transparent collaboration between the stakeholders, which include the youth and the women, institutions, sectors, also comes traceability and accountability to ensure social equity as we turn the tide on deforestation and forest degradation to achieve a sustainable future. Included in the aforementioned forests are dryland forests, which are ever so fragile. Yet it has been calculated that these dryland ecosystems supply 60% of the world's food production and contain 50% of the world's livestock and host 27% of the world's forests. Regrettably, they are at major risk of collapse. We cannot indulge ourselves to ponder with the what ifs and how abouts. We must act now. But this cannot happen unless we acknowledge the significant global level relationship of forests to the water, carbon, and energy cycles that directly impact our climate and even our health, as COVID-19 has so bitterly taught us. Hence, we have to focus our efforts on developing circular bioeconomy value chains, which result in climate neutrality. Then again, due to our time constraint, we must scale up. I would like to share a small personal note here. I remember distinctly how His Majesty, the late King Hussein of Jordan, who was way ahead of his time, warned us in the late 80s that if we don't change the way we live and focus on sustainable development, he cautioned us that the future wars will be fought over water. But now I think it will be fought over much more than that if we don't take action, which is the most basic human right, for without water, there is no agriculture, nor biodiversity, no life at all. We are on the cusp of such a scenario. So how can we claim to be civilized and modern if we can't even sustainably manage our resources and provide a safe future for the next generation? It is a choice, our choice. So let's make the right choice, and let's make it now. Keeping this in mind as you travel back to your homes, having made new memories, developed new friendships, and ticked off this event from your to-do list. Yes, the 15th World Forestry Congress has ended, but our work has just begun. As I ask each and every one of you to do what it takes to turn the tide. For I pose the same question as I did in the opening session. What kind of world will you be leaving to your own children and grandchildren? Thank you very much, and I wish you all a safe journey home.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness, once again for your kind message and your inspirational speech on the will for international cooperation in forestry. Thank you once again. And now, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a closing declaration by the Minister of the Korea Forest Service, marking the end of the 15th World Forestry Congress. Please welcome to the stage with a big round of applause, Honorable Minister Choi Byung-am of the Korea Forest Service with a big round of applause.
존경하는
Honorable heads of states and representatives from international organizations and all participants of the 15th World Forestry Congress, joining us both online and offline. Now it is time for us to conclude the Congress. In 2016, we have won the bid for the Congress, and it has taken us a very long time to prepare for this Congress. At last, we are at this point in time where we conclude this Congress and look forward to meeting again in 6 years. During the last week, we were able to have a meaningful journey under the theme of building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests. At the 15th World Forestry Congress, we were able to conclude with meaningful outcomes and a Seoul Declaration. Thank you very much to all those here today who have made this outcome possible. Due to COVID-19, we went through various challenges, but thank you very much to Deputy Secretary General Maria Helena Cepeda of FAO and all members of the FAO for enabling us to successfully host this Congress. In addition, I would like to take this opportunity to offer my words of support and warm thanks to all participants from governments, civic societies, and international organizations for sparing no effort in sharing your valuable wisdom and passion with us. Last but not least, thank you very much to the staff at FAO, in particular the organizing committee, for all of your hard work. While viewing the highlight video at the beginning of the closing ceremony, the moments over the past week seemed to pass before my eyes like a panorama. During the last few years, we have had challenges to overcome to prepare for this Congress, but we have been able to enjoy passionate discussions and conclude with the Seoul Forestry Declaration. The Seoul Forestry Declaration emphasizes climate change, the reduction in biodiversity, the loss of land, deforestation, hunger, and poverty. And we believe that these are some of the challenges that we need to deal with through forestry. We have been able to set 6 action plans. First, forest should go beyond political and economic barriers. We should be jointly responsible for forest in managing forestry. Second, in order to restore devastated forest, up until 2030, the international society has set goals for recovery by increasing our investments by threefold. 3, for sustainable consumption and production, we need to work on preservation and restoration of forestry, as well as sustainable utilization through an innovative green financial system. 4th, the world's oldest material is wood. This is the material that we are most familiar with. We need to utilize wood to reduce carbon in areas of construction and other areas by sustainably producing and consuming wood. 5th, forestry will contribute to the health of human lives. This is something that we have reconfirmed through COVID-19. We need to reduce the negative impact on forestry so that we may prepare for the next pandemic. 6th, we need to leverage science and technology for forestry so that we could have data-based sustainable management of forestry. Along with the Seoul Declaration, we have been able to announce the declaration by the Ministerial Forum for Sustainable Wood, as well as the Youth Foresters Declaration. We hope to share these messages around the world. We hope to expand Korea's contribution to the international community by collaborating with the FAO, and we have launched the comprehensive mechanism with the FAO to manage forestry. And with the UNEP, we have decided to contribute to the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration. We will continue to work with UNRDD so that we can create a platform for REDD+ capacity building. Thanks to these action plans, we do hope that we will be able to contribute to the achievement of the Glasgow Declaration on Forest and Land Use, and also lead the way for forest recovery in all countries around the world, including developing countries.
이제 산림
Now, forestry no longer remains at setting the goal at restoration. We hope to achieve sustainable management and coexistence with local communities through systematic management of forestry. This is something that we can all relate to. Along these lines, through the Congress, we have been able to agree on sharing the responsibility of sustainable management among all stakeholders. By achieving this sharing, we do look forward to enhancing the value of forestry around the world and also to secure safety through forestry recovery, and we also believe that it will strengthen our ecosystems. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been able to enjoy abundant results and outcomes. We have also had the participation of ministers and vice ministers, as well as heads of international organizations who are decision makers at this Congress, and it is very meaningful that we have been able to share our understanding with one another. The government of the Republic of Korea and the Korea Service Forestry will continue to contribute to greening the world, and our efforts will not end here at this Congress. We will continue to work with the UN as well as UN member states through close partnership so that we will be able to put into action all of the outcomes from this Congress. The management of forestry beyond borders, the utilization of forestry for peace, cooperation for these goals must start now. We need to make sure that the momentum started at this Congress continues into the future so that we can see actual changes on site. We will all make efforts together for this goal. Now is a time to take action. Now is a time to have tangible results. This cannot be done by any one country alone. We need to make sure that every single one of us here today come together for a better future with forests. This brings us to the end of the 15th World Forestry Congress. Once again, thank you very much to all those who have shared your passion, knowledge, and insights with us throughout the Congress. Thank you very much on behalf of the Korean government and people. I wish you good health and the best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Choi Byung-am, for the closing declaration. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a commemorative photo session for today's guests of honor. We kindly ask them to proceed onto the stairs in front of the podium to stand on in front of the podium for the group photo. Yes, for our guests of honor, please join us on the stage for a group photo. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, we would now like to invite our guests of honor up onto the stage for a group commemorative photo. Once again, please join us for the photo. Thank you very much. So we will take 2 rounds of the photo. First of all of the speakers of our sessions, we kindly ask you to join us up on stage. Once again, all of the speakers for the sessions, please join us up on stage for the group photo. Yes, please watch the cameras in front of you. We have quite many cameras today, so please smile for the cameras in front of you. I think that you will have to keep smiling as we have more than a dozen cameras taking your photos. Yes, please continue to smile for the cameras. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I believe all of the photos are taken. Shall we have the second round of the photo for the group photo? Thank you very much. Yes, we have a couple of cameramen with their hands up. Thank you. Please give them another big round of applause. Yes. And now we would like to invite our guests of honor, our Honorable Minister, as well as our distinguished guests and excellencies. Please join us up on stage for the commemorative photo. And for our guests who are joining us, it is finally time to bring today's ceremony as well as the 15th World Forestry Congress to a close. I would like to thank everyone once again for your participation in the Congress and everyone who has dedicated themselves to the World Forestry Congress here in Seoul. I do hope that you stay healthy and safe and that you return home safely until we are reunited once again at the 16th World Forestry Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished guests, with this, I bid you farewell. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you. Oh, yes. Shall I write it down for you?
I am a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry.
I'm a face of forestry.
I'm a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry.
I'm a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry. I'm a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry.
I'm a face of forestry.
I am a face of forestry. I am a face of forestry.
Okay.